segment I'm going to show you a quick technique that we're going to do on this layered sort of sunset painting. And I just have a flat brush. I have some water on it. This bottom layer has dried really well. Actually, I have let this sit for a few days before I've gotten back to it. So I know it's good and dry, very light water coating on my painting. I could also miss this because I do know it's dry, but I'm covering it with a flat brush of water. And then what I'm going to do is just put on some paint right from the tube. I'm going to create a couple of different colors here. I've got a gold and then this is called medium magenta, and it's a pinkish purple color, as you can see. And I'm just working this back and forth. Some yellow gold on this side. Working this in streaks back and forth. This is just layering the color on top using absolutely no medium. And by using the flat color on the one side and then the gold on the other side and sort of streaking it through, you can create that sort of sunset glistening effect where the color is sort of streaking through on this side. Apply just a little more. And you can apply this to a palette and mix it with another color if you like. I'm just working this to show you techniques more or less. So I'm applying it straight from the tube. But if you whisk it through, like I'm doing, you will get that sort of whisking that you get with the sunset. A little more water on my brush, and I'm going to bring it down here for a different technique. So I'm not whisking this all the way across necessarily. I'm part way over my background highlight that we applied. A little bit of it goes across here, but part of it just goes partially across. And then the flat color, the pink, came this way. Alright, so that is how you can get a sunset, sunrise, any kind of sun color, because of course, as you notice, the sun does not, you know, one full color. When we were in second grade, we painted the sky blue, the grass green, but if you really look outside, it's not really like that. The sky has many different colors in it, and so does the land or water. So for this next technique, I'm going to work with a different tool. And then I'm going to apply my paint. I'm using a sort of orangey red. This is a cadmium light red. Right to the palette. Add a little bit of titanium white here in the center. Very little. Probably going to bring in a little bit of the gold right there. And whir that around. Over my bottom highlight that I have here with the white. I'm streaking this back and forth, up and down. I have my texture ridges in here that we created. For this bottom highlight, it's just a little white titanium. Moving it through this way. Now you can use a variety of brushes and things to affect this. You can even sort of smudge it through with a little paper towel. if you like, to get that very light sort of hue of the sun or moon, whichever it is, reflecting on the surface. So working that out, I'm going to thin this out down here. As the reflection sort of minimizes down here a bit. Sometimes nothing will do, like a good old-fashioned piece of paper towel. Like that. Okay, so that's essentially how you get that, working on that. And then of course you can come over it with your paint, applying various colors. Again, this is a little of that magenta that I used up in the sky, a little of that cadmium mixed together there, a little water on my brush, and I'm using a large sort of blender brush on this, just because my other brush got a lot of white on it. Bringing that in like that. Okay. And this is such a nice brush to work with. I really like it. It's a little more of a fluffy flat brush. So just kind of zhuzhing that back and forth to create sort of the imperfect look of the reflection there. So I'm going to work on that a little bit and clean that up and blend that really smoothly, just using the water, the paint, and my different brushes. Okay, so for this section, you can see that I have applied some metallic gold over, and this is my horizon texture line. I have my Catylst tool, and I'll be working that over that area. So I create sort of an interesting broken bit of a layer there. And that is really fun. You can also drop down some more texture in this area if you feel like you didn't quite get enough. Catylst is great for doing that as well. So I'm going to work on that and then show you how I'll come back and finish off this particular painting. Alright, and so the last layers that we put down have dried. So what I'm going to do right now is mix up, I've got some satin glaze. This liquid is a satin acrylic glaze, and then I have a gloss medium. Not a gloss glaze, but a gloss medium, which is a thicker consistency. And I'm going to mix those two together because I want this last layer, or one of the last layers, to be fairly substantial. So I'm going to mix those together rather smoothly, and a little bit of water, add just a little more satin glaze. The reason I'm using a satin and not a gloss glaze is I really don't want a super high gloss finish. I want to kind of tone down a little bit, and the satin glaze will help tone down the gloss just a little. So what I'm going to put in there now is some of my cadmium light red, I'm adding that as a light base color. I'm starting lighter and we're going to go deeper with this. So I'm mixing this in about half of the glaze. You can mix it in the whole thing, it doesn't really matter. Kind of coming out with a very light orange color. And I'm going to apply that right over this area that has more orange in it. Alright, I am using my fairly wet brush that I used before. It's clean now, but it's not fully dry. It has a little bit of water on it. I don't need to wet down my canvas for this because I want it fairly full strength. So I already have some water on my brush, so I would just suggest a little water in your brush is best. So going over this is going to give us a beautiful semi-gloss lustrous finish. Has a little bit of a glaze or a color in it to sort of tone it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of my magenta that I used for the sky, putting right in with that color. I'm mixing some of that up together. There's a little bit of the red that didn't get fully incorporated, so you can see that's giving me a really pretty, nice color. It's sort of a mauve. I'm going over the top of my painting with this pink because this is where the pinks are predominantly in my painting. Going over some of that gold, toning it just a little bit and bringing it down. You can bring some down here where your pinks are in your painting, since this painting has many striations of color. Any areas that have a lot of pink, you can go ahead and apply that. Alright, so now what I'm doing is I'm putting in a drop of the cadmium medium red hue. Just a little bit of water. I'm going to mix that in now. So what we're doing is we're developing some unique colors because we're mixing and blending. A little of my glaze incorporated to kind of mellow that out. We don't really want a lot of color here. We want more of a toning, glazing effect. So that gives me a very pretty coral red. And I'm going to apply that, of course, over my coral red area to tone and blend and develop a beautiful lustrous finish. So this is a technique that you can use to finish off your paintings, but it's also a good technique if you have color laid down that's a little too harsh, or it just isn't quite looking as blended or soft as you like, and you didn't do it the first layer, now it's dried. You can lay down a coat of some color gloss like this over the top. Now you can blend a few different times, add a few different layers once it's dried if you need to build up that color. But what this is going to do is it's not only going to give you a beautiful, beautiful final finish, but it's going to help blend any rough edges, rough colors, subdue any colors that you want to subdue. And then what I'm going to do is add, this is a red oxide that I've put in here. It's kind of a brownish clay red. Got a little more of my glaze on the side there. I'm going to mix that all up with my brush. I don't want a lot of this. I'm bringing this in at the very end, working from the lighter colors to the depth of colors in my painting and in my palette. And I'm bringing that down here toward the bottom where I applied that darker red before. And I'm applying that with the same type of stroke and technique, just to build a little more depth of color down here, kind of blend where those dark patches were. You can use this to add a scrum on your final layer to give you a little unique texture if you like. Or on this painting, what I'm doing is I'm just working with the texture I have. I don't want to add a lot. I want kind of a nice soft flowy finish on top, which is why I'm using this flat brush. It's got a little more, I'd say, fluffiness to the brushes than my regular flat brush, which is this. This one has a little more to it. This one's very flat. This one kind of helps you build up a little more paint in the bristles and gives me a really nice finish. You could use either one though. And I'm just going back over just to blend. Okay, so if anywhere you find that you need to mellow out your colors, tone it down, add a really pretty finish, this is a nice final coat. Both the gloss and the gloss medium and the glaze. Sometimes I use 2 glazes. If you've seen my tutorials, you've seen that. This adds a thicker coat of that. So it's basically the same principle for giving your painting a nice final finish. It's just a nice thicker coat. So that's another technique that you can use. Now we're going to come back with one more touch-up highlight on this particular painting, and then we'll be done. Okay, so we are almost done with this. This has completely dried very well. What I'm going to do now is I have an illuminating medium. This is the one that I have. You can use whatever you like. And what this does is just sort of highlight and illuminate certain areas on your painting. You can mix it with paint. You can use it full strength. It is meant to be mixed as a medium with acrylics. But I'm going to use it full strength on a dry flat brush. And the area that I had my sun, I'm going to go over that, bring that down right in here in my water reflection. You can skip this if you don't have the medium. You don't have to do this. It's just a way of sort of highlighting certain areas on your painting. Okay, so that is that. And then what I'm going to do is take some of my gold, put it on my flat brush, just like that, just a little bit, and I'm going to highlight some of these areas of texture. So I'm just going to run it very lightly over the surface of the texture. Where we had our gold before, and I'm just going to highlight a few of these little areas a little bit more, just because I want a little more of a golden glint. And that is essentially going to be it. So that's the end of BALI Sun. I'm going to put a nice glaze finish on, or actually I already did put a glaze finish on it. So we are good to go. This is a 16 by 20 art board, canvas board, and this is best framed. So I'll post some final shots of this painting, and hopefully you enjoyed it and learned something. And I really appreciate you watching this tutorial and any of my tutorials. Please like them and subscribe, and please do comment, because I like to know what you want to see, what you like, you know, those sorts of things. So thanks again for watching.